Hi there! Sustainable buildings don't fall out of the sky. If you want to adapt a building in a sustainable way, you need to know something about the management of building adaptation processes. In this video, we explain the basics of managing the adaptation of buildings, which can be applied to any existing building. Here you see a sustainable adapted traditional row house. This project is called Pré-à-Loger and has been designed and developed by students from Delft University of Technology in collaboration with companies. The building itself can be seen as a final product of an adaptation process. But what does it take to adapt such a building? It takes more than changing its function or put solar panels on the roof. Let's find out what building adaptation processes consist of. All buildings have a lifespan. At a certain point in its lifetime, a building in its current state is not fit for use anymore. Buildings can become technically obsolete, maintenance costs can skyrocket, and buildings can become functionally unsuitable for current uses. In many cases, there are possibilities to adapt it and make existing buildings fit for new use. For instance, a solution could be to adapt the interior to new forms of use, so we don't always need to demolish buildings right away. To put it in another way, building lifespans can be extended. Then we need to think about cyclical processes of adaptation. Let's talk about this building adaptation process cycle, which functions as a guideline in this course. The cycle consists of 4 consecutive phases: the initiative phase, the design and feasibility phase, the construction phase, and the management and use phase. The development of a new building starts with an initiative and ends in a management phase. Note that existing buildings that need to be adapted is always in a management and use phase. But to start the building adaptation process, someone still needs to take the initiative to adapt it. Then a redesign has to be made, the building needs to be reconstructed, and finally the building can be reused again. So now that we know the adaptation of buildings follow a cyclical process containing 4 phases, how can we manage it? For instance, how did they manage the transformation of this former corn exchange building in Sydney into a modern flexible office building? Management can be done by using management tools. By management, we mean any type of direct influence. So management tools are those tools that can directly influence decision making. In our case, the decision making on building adaptation. In order to make decisions, building adaptation managers can apply specific management tools in each phase. Note that within each process phase, there are specific decisions to be made. So decisions made in one phase influence decisions in the following phases. Let's briefly look at each phase and see what decisions managers need to make and what type of management tools they can use. In the initiative phase, you decide which uses are possible for your building, what type of changes we are going to make, and who needs to be involved in this adaptation. Here, urban development management look beyond the building itself and analyze real estate market demand and location opportunities. Also, they look at other types of building functions like housing, offices, retail, and so on. Then they identify the various types of actors, like owners, investors, municipalities, real estate developers, and also users, that might play a significant role in the adaptation process. So in this phase, it is all about analysis tools. With these tools, managers can determine a suitable function for the building adaptation and who is going to be involved. In the design and feasibility phase, you create several design alternatives to implement your new building use. The design alternatives or concepts come at certain costs. You have to calculate the cost-benefit ratio and usability of each design concept. Therefore, in this phase, design managers determine which building adaptation concept is both functionally optimal and financially feasible. If none is useful or feasible, they make new designs alternatives. So, in this phase, it is all about combining design and calculation tools. Then, in the construction and planning phase, you are finally going to rebuild something. But in order to realize your design, you need to decide what construction activities are needed. who is going to perform them, and how you are going to plan all of this. Note that multiple parties work together to realize a building adaptation. This involves a lot of information sharing, collaboration, and smart planning. Construction managers carefully manage the realization of building adaptation. They will apply organizational tools like work structures and planning schemes. If you made all the right decisions, you have successfully adapted a building. People can start using it now. This brings us to the management and use phase, the longest phase of the building cycle. Here the building needs to be maintained in order to keep it functioning properly. Also, the building must support the user needs continuously. In addition, sustainability measures should be considered, for instance, to improve the energy efficiency of the building. Asset managers are responsible for managing the building in its use phase. In order to do so, they apply management tools like maintenance plans and user surveys. So, as you see, managing building adaptation is quite a complex managerial task. It involves a cyclical process with 4 consecutive phases in which multiple tools can be applied and decisions have to be made by managers. Remember that these principles of managing building adaptation can be applied to any building, also the ones in your own neighborhood or city.